And I will tell you what I did during that time was important. And this is what I want to encourage anyone who's been told that they're not prepared or they're not a good fit or this is just not for you. I want you to order your mind. And that's what I began to do. I began to sit there and I let that go. I said, okay, they don't want me to run 4x1. Oh, okay. I said, but you know what, Rosin, you got your 400 and just you is in there and you in lane 9. And I began to order my mind. I began to focus on that which I had been given, that which was still mine, that which was still a good fit for me. See, often what we do is we focus on that which we do not have, or however it's not ours anymore, instead of that what we have. So I focused on my opportunity that I had to still run 12, albeit 12 hours later, but that time. And as the morning went, and it was a hot day. Oh my God, it was so hot. I remember looking out at the track and being able to see just like those heat waves. It was hot. So I knew to get in the shade. And I don't remember anyone even particularly speaking to me during the rest of the day. I did, as it became, during the day, I did cheer on some of my teammates. But eventually it became time, and they call runners get ready for the 440-yard dash. And they called us to get ready. And what they mean by then is report. You have to usually report to the officials that you are there. You check in. And they do this usually about an hour prior to. So if I'm running at 9, it would have been about 8. And I go and I check in, Rosalind Dunlap. And they say, oh, you got lane 9. And I said, thank you. Because, see, that day I had been sitting there thinking about how I would run. And I remember there were some heavies in the event, some really good people. And so as time goes on, after we check in, we then have to report what we call to the corral. And that corral is where they now sit us. If there are heats of an event, they sit us lane. So usually heat 1, 1 through 9, they have chairs or they have spaces for us to sit on the ground. However, in this case, there was only one heat. And so they didn't run 2 heats. They said, we're going to run 1 heat, lanes 1 through 9. And I am in lane 9. And I remember getting warmed up and getting ready to run my 440-yard dash. I was 15 years old. When I was in Indiana, and I was with the Chicago Zephyrs by myself, no parents, no one there to come see me. In fact, like I said earlier that day, I had been told I wasn't good enough or I wasn't the right fit for the 4x100. Okay. So now it's getting ready, and as we get closer to the actual event, what happens is they tell us to get onto the track. And so when we get onto the track, we still are dressed in our sweats, fully still dressed. And it had been a hot day, but I had made sure that I stayed in the shade, that I stayed hydrated, and I stayed focused on that which I still could do. And you take some, when you're warming up, I've already stretched and stuff, but now we run, and I take, because the 400 is a block start. Some people during that time were doing a standing start, but it still was a block start where you actually get down in the blocks, and they say runners, take your mark, get set, and then they shoot the gun. So it was a block start. So I set my blocks up, and I still remember I was always a left. My forward foot was left, was always front, and my back foot was back. And my right foot was back because I'm right-handed. And so when I come out of the blocks, my right hand leads me, and it pulls my left arm. And see, what that means is the opposite sides work. A lot of people don't think about it, but it's our opposite arm that pulls the opposite leg. And if you ever want to just try it, get up and walk. You do not walk with your left hand or your left arm and your left leg moving in the same coordination. You walk with your left working with your right working with your left. So I was a right-handed starter, left leg forward, get my blocks set. And I remember saying, I don't want to see anybody today because I'm in lane 9. So understand what I mean by this is that I am way up on the curve, right? Everybody's behind me. And if I'm seeing someone, that means they've caught me because that means they've made up what we call the stagger. And I am in lane 9 and I briefly give a thought, just briefly, that I wasn't the person to run earlier today. But I said, oh, that's all right, because I'm going to run today. I'm going to run right now. And I get in the blocks, and I remember the official saying, runners, take your mark. And I got I got that right foot, and I always would actually put my left leg first in because that was the power leg, right? That's the one that's going to push off. And then I got my right leg back into the, and I always would sit back on my legs and dust off my hands and dust off my knees because I was just getting there. And then I would get on into that position, making sure that my hands were right behind the line because you couldn't have your hands on the line. They had to be right behind the line. So I always made sure I was just right there. Got my shoulders right because you got to make sure you're comfortable. And then he said, runners, get set. That means when you come up and you bring yourself up. A lot of people don't realize that right there, that start, we practice the start like we practice racing. I remember one day during practice that we had practiced the start for the whole entire practice. It was like, just whole thing, pushing off. First we started with just reacting to the gun, to come off. We just kept doing it over and over, but we practiced. And so now the official says, runners, get set. Now, I bring my body up and it's level. I never brought it would be just slightly up because you didn't want so much pressure on your shoulders that you felt, like you were, gonna fall over. But you wanted just to be comfortable enough so that you were up and that you would come out. And he then fired the gun, get set, boom. And I started that race, and I started out like my dad used to say, a bat out of hell. And I started running that race, and I'm running. I hit the first curve. And I can hear. Now, this is the thing. I can hear the footsteps because, they're the other lanes 1 through 8. Were full, and I can hear their footsteps, and I'm running that back curve, and I used to talk to myself. I said, okay, Roz, you got to relax now. You got to push it, but don't push too hard because you still got a little bit to go. Because see, that 400 meter is not a 100-yard dash where you can just go all out and give it all you got. No, you got to have some strategy. You have to kind of reserve a little bit because it's a really serious amount of effort to do that. And now we go into that last curve, and I used to practice taking me a few breaths right there. That as we're going into that second curve, I'm practicing, and I'm taking my breaths. And as I come out to the curve, I said, okay, this is it. I still don't see anybody, but I can hear them. I run down the last straightaway. I cross the line by myself. Boom. I turn around and I see them coming, and as they announce, Dunlap number, one. First of all, one from lane 9, which is huge because generally, like I said, those who were the fastest time were usually 4, 5, or 6, and I was out in lane 9, so nobody was thinking I was going to win, right? But I want to give you this nugget. It didn't matter what anybody else thought that day. What mattered was what I thought. What mattered was what I believed God had planned for me. And see, too often we get caught up in what other people say, what other people do in regards to what our purpose, what we are created to do. And I want to encourage someone today. Don't listen to that. Let them speak. That's fine. Because, hey, like I said, that particular day, somebody made the decision. They didn't allow me to run. And I then went ahead and won my race. But had I just sat there that day and focused on what I couldn't do or what someone else said I was, I wouldn't have won that race. But that's what the other issue is here. You got to believe. Remember, the name of this show is Believe and to Achieve. You got to believe, but that takes practice to focus on what you have, what you know you can do. Even when someone else is saying to you, you can't. I want you to hear me again. You have to practice believing in yourself. That's what I'm saying to you today. You have to practice it, because you're going to get someone saying to you, you can't. You won't. Oh, remember you tried to do that before and that didn't work out. Remember your daddy tried to do that. That didn't. Remember your mom, your auntie, your cousin. They got something for you, right? But that don't matter. Because that particular day, I believed that I was and became the number one at that moment. And I remember as there was one other person that won first place that day, a guy, and I don't remember the event that he ran, but it was me and him, and the trophies that they gave, that's what they used to give, these like crazy trophies, not just medals. The trophy was a good almost 3 feet tall, like 3.5 feet tall. It was just huge. Now it was called and it had Carmel Classics first 440-yard dash. That was the placard, the metal placard that was on this trophy. And as I sat on the bus with my 3.5 foot tall trophy, everybody was quiet. Because see, they had told me earlier that day that I was not good enough. But what made the difference was what God had planned for me. I believed in it. See, I'm not just saying by my might and by my will. What I'm saying is I understood where my talent came from. Because the fact that I could run so fast, even as a little one, I began to understand that was something given from someone else. Because anytime I ran, I was just flat out fast. In fact, I was talking to a person recently. She's in my doctoral program. We're sharing a class, and we began to talk because I wanted to help her with her dissertation so that I can get a little bit ahead in terms of understanding what it is that I will need to do later, because I'm like 2 terms from my dissertation. And we began to talk, and she said, well, I'm from Chicago. And I'm listening, and I go, where? And she says, K-Town. I said, stop. I grew up in K-Town. And so I said, I grew up 4159 West Adams. And she said, I grew up 44 something on Wilcox, literally 3 blocks away from each other. And I said, well, where did you go to school? And she tells me, and I said, well, I went to Lane. And she says, well, my sister went to Lane Tech. And I said, well, what was your sister's name? Because there wasn't that many black folk there, so I probably knew her. And she tells me, she sends me a picture, and I said, I don't remember her. But she says, well, but you know what? She's friends with this other person. And she says, her name is Dorothy. And I said, well, I remember a Dottie with a big afro. And she said that would be her, I believe. She sent this person a message, and she sent it back to me. She said she remembered me. She said, and I was really fast. But see, again, even though someone else believed, I have to believe. See, we have to understand that what is for you, what God has ordained for you, in that Jeremiah 29:11, where he says, though the plans I have for you, right? See, what we get caught up in, we compare ourselves to our sister, to our mother, to someone else. We compare ourselves when we need not compare ourselves to anybody at all. We need to understand what God has for us. Nobody. Even when it looks like it may be gone, it's not. And that's what I want you to understand today, that you got to believe, even when it looks dark, even when you can't see, even when somebody else done told you that you can no longer do it, you got to believe. Because I will tell you, in this life, right, there's no one that's going to escape having some heartaches, right? Having some things not work out, having some things really take you down to the place where you think, I can't even see. I remember preaching one time, and I said, I was at that place where, when they sing that song where you say, down, I was all by myself. I couldn't hear nobody pray, right? And sometimes that's where we may find ourselves. But what I'm saying to you is believe in the promise of the Almighty God, the one that created you, the one that said, let there be life, right? Who breathed into your nostrils, who breathed into your lungs and made you here, brought you here. Because it's easy, and it really is easy, to get caught up in what you see and what you think. Because I can tell you, and I know somebody's listening today that needs to hear that it's going to be all right. Because see, that day in that story, as I said, they told me I couldn't. They said to me I wasn't good enough. They said to me somebody else was a better fit. But what I did was I focused on what I could do. And when we looked up, I was the only girl person on that team that day with the 3.5-foot trophy for number one, for first place. Nobody else. That team that they said I couldn't be on, they did. I think they got like third or something. I don't even remember, because I let that go. And I'm not saying that it doesn't hurt when people say to you, because that morning, like I said, I love this new term. I was feeling some kind of way, right? When they told me I couldn't, because I was all ready to, run that thing. I was ready to, let it all go. But they said no. And then later on in life, it continued. As I was getting ready to go to college, I knew I was going to Michigan State. I knew it. I had a scholarship offer, had been talking to the coach. In fact, had 2 other guys who had went up there. They were all, boom, lady had called me on the phone. Everything was like a go. And then I tied for second with Jackie Joyner behind a person named Debbie Zinn in 1979. And the coach from Michigan called me and said, oh, we're gonna give you a partial scholarship, not a full. And I remember on the phone going, but she said, yeah, well, you didn't perform as well as we thought you needed to. You didn't do as well as we thought you should do. I had ran that year in 1979. I was the first person to go below 56 seconds in the 400 meter in high school. I was ranked number 45th. That may sound like nothing to you, but I was ranked as 45th in the nation in the 400 meter coming out of high school. And this woman said to me, I just didn't do well enough for her to give me a full scholarship. And I remember, as I told her, she said, would I accept the partial? And I remember saying to her, no, ma'am. And this is what I said to her, because, again, it's not just about believing that you can do it. It's knowing and trusting in God, whose my hand has never left, that he had something better. And I told her, no, ma'am, I won't do a partial. I said, because anywhere I go, I just believe I'm going to do really well. And I hung up that phone, and I remember going into my bedroom and just sitting there and crying, because I was just like, what am I going to do now? Because I was to the point at Michigan State, I had selected my dorm room. I was accepted into the school, everything, because I had wanted to go to Michigan State since I could remember. And that was snatched because she was like, well, your parents could afford it. And I said, they can, but my mom and dad will not have to pay for me to go to school, because I can do something that will help me get a scholarship. And this is what it is. And I will not accept anything else. I went and I looked, and I'm looking at the letters. I got something from Illinois. I was thinking about UCLA. I was thinking about the Arizona's University of Arizona, Arizona State. But I had put everything that I wanted to do was in Michigan State. And so I go back to school and I tell my coach, I said, well, she's talking about a partial. And he goes, well, Rosalind, maybe that may be an option. I mean, it is Michigan State. It's a big school, Big Ten. You go there and you're able to, still run, and maybe the next year you get a good thing. But I said, Coach, you told me that I'm good enough that I need to have a full ride. I'm sitting in class, and I can tell you I'm sitting in class, and they get a call on the intercom through the thing to my teacher, and he says, could you send Rosalind Dunlap to the counselor in the office? So I'm like, ooh. And everybody's, how people do when you're being called to the office. They're like, ooh. And I'm like, well, what is this about? I don't remember doing anything bad. And so I get to the counselor's office, and he said, I just got off the phone with a coach, Dorothy Doolittle, out of University of Missouri. And she wants to know if you're interested in coming to Missouri on a full ride. Hear what I just said. Where I wanted to go, University Michigan State had told me I could come, but I had to pay. But now here's a place, and I go, so I say, because I don't know, I go like, well, where is that at? He goes, well, I says, near St. Louis, because that's the only thing I knew about Missouri. He goes, no, it's in Columbia, but she's willing, if you want to, she's gonna set up a meeting. You can come down and you can visit, but she's talking a full ride. That means they'll pay everything. So I get with my mother, and I tell my mom, I tell my dad. My dad was a truck driver. He's like, well, Carrie, will you go with the, he called me the baby. Will you go with the baby and see what she can do? And we drive down to the University of Missouri from Chicago. And I remember getting on that campus and going, okay, okay, this is big. It's Big 8 at the time. Now they're, SEC. And she said, Rosalind, and she was about 4 feet, she was such a tiny little woman, about 4'9". And she sounded like Mickey Mouse. She's like, Rosalind, she had a little high-pitched voice. She said, I want to give you a full ride. And she was promising like the heaven and earth. She would tell my mom she could, my mother could come and go fishing. Now, side story, my mother loved fishing. So if somebody promised my mother they would take her fishing, she was all for that. So my mother's like, okay, well, if I can come here and go fishing, but she was promising everything, full ride, everything. What did I want to be at my major? But my point is I want to encourage you, because when things look their darkest, there's some light somewhere. I got a caller. No? Oh, it's time for a song. We're gonna have a song. Thank you. Bye-bye. We're gonna have a song, and I'll be back.
Put those hands together all across the building tonight. Let the devil know that you encouraged. Let him know that you encouraged. Let him know. Hallelujah. I don't know about you tonight, but somebody may be crying, but I come to let you know that God can make it all right. Ooh, yes. Be encouraged. Oh, He will. He'll make it all right. Yeah. Ooh. I know right now it's impossible to see, but God is gonna work it out if you just believe. Remember this one thing while you're going through. If God delivered Daniel, guess what? He'll do the same for you. Hey. No matter what's going on, He'll make it all right. Said it in His word. Be encouraged. No test, just a test of your faith. So stand strong and dry your weeping eyes, 'cause joy comes in the morning, and everything is gonna be all right. He said, that's what he told me. Oh, you gotta be encouraged.
You got to be encouraged.
Somebody got bills tonight.
Whoa.
Somebody don't know where the children are.
But you can make it.
I guarantee you'll make it all right.
He said I'll make it all right.
Tonight, come on. Hey!
He is steadfast and unmovable, always abounding in the word of the Lord. No, you're not that your labor's not in the Lord.
Oh, Lord. Somebody wants to be strong tonight. Well, we come to let you know. All you got to do is hold on. Stand now. Hey. Oh, Lord. No matter what's going on.
I hope you heard this song. I hope you heard it. Be encouraged, right? Because what happens, like I said, is we listen. We forget what we were promised. See, that's the thing. You got to remember what God promised to you. You cannot allow yourself to get caught up in what somebody else got, right? Maybe your house is not as big as, your friend. Maybe your pocketbook don't cost as much as the next person, right? Maybe your kids are not doing what your sister's kids are doing, but the bottom line is you got to believe that God promised you. And see, I have gone through some stuff, right? Losing my law practice, right? Hey, that thing right there was nothing to play with, right? Because I had studied, went to law school, passed the bar the first time. Lost my mom and my dad. They both passed while I was in law school. While I was in law school, I had to have surgery and withdraw. Still made it through law school in 2.5 years. Law school's 3. What I'm saying to you is that you got to focus on not what it is, but what it can be. Do you see in those darkest hours, right? You just can't look and say, because, if you're in the dark, you're in the dark. But you got to focus on, at some point, as they say, the sun will rise. The sun will rise. Daybreak will come. And you got to expect it. I've talked a lot about our expectations actually can precipitate what will come, because if we only expect, I love when people say, well, I don't love, but when people say things like, well, something bad got to happen. No, it don't. It don't. And it don't have to be the worst thing, right? We can, because of our hand in the hand, we can overcome so much, so many challenges. When I think about my sons that I had, I can tell you this, and I'm look, it is what it is. I can call their father today, Mr. Yusuf Ali, 3-time Olympian. He will not return my call. He doesn't care. But guess what? That's okay, because that's not my business. See, my business is to be their mother, and that's what I am. I am their mother, and that's what I told them. I said, look, I can't tell you, I can't make up for what someone else doesn't do, or thinks or whatever. But I'm gonna be the best I can, and that's what I want to encourage all of my listeners today. If you're listening today, I want you to encourage yourself, right? I want you to know without doubting that you're going to see it through. I want you to know that you will make it and that you're just not going to survive, that you're going to thrive. Because I can tell you when I had to deal with my children's father, my husband, leaving us, I had nothing. I didn't even have money to buy the second baby diapers. And I'm not kidding. I'm not making it up. I couldn't even buy a onesie, right? Onesies cost, what, I don't know, you can get them for, $3 in a pack. I didn't have any money. Not a dime did I have. But that young man right now and all my other children, they have. And has it been a struggle sometimes? Oh, yeah, absolutely. But guess what? I've taught them. My son told me this morning, my oldest, we were just talking, and I said to him, I wish I could have given you all more money or, something. And he said, Mom, please. He said, if you had given me $1 million, that'd been gone already. He said, I didn't have that over and over again. He said, but what you gave me was the ability and the knowledge to know that I can do, that I can make it. He said, that right there, Mom, that's worth that million and some more. He said, please. He said, what you taught us was that nothing will ever keep us down, that we have the power to do it, that we can make it. And see, to me, that's what I'm just saying to you today, right? You may be thinking, I can't do it again, right? Because, I was, sometimes it's like the waves hit you, right? And then they hit you again. You're like, okay, you're trying to get the water in your face. The waves hit you again. You say, okay, you can't even breathe. Waves hit you again. You say, can I just get a break? But I'm just saying to you, yeah, it's going to be tough sometimes. And sometimes you're not going to believe that the sun will rise. Sometimes you believe that it's going to be dark forever. But what I can say to you without any doubt in my mind is that a better day will come. But you got to work. You got to believe. You got to expect, right? The name of this show is To Believe to Achieve. You have to believe. And see, I just happen to have the audacity to believe the word of God. I just believe it. I have the audacity to believe that what is right now, God got better for me. I just believe that. And better is not always that I'm going to get a bigger bank account, but just that I'm going to be able to do what he created me to do, which is to touch other people's lives and to let them know that God is on your side, that God loves you, and that he sees you. Because sometimes people think nobody could be going through what I'm going through. Nobody cares. Nobody, is trying to help me. Because it's easy to feel that way when we're sitting there and nothing's going right, right? But I want you to hold on. Hang in there. Don't give up. Don't give out. Just hang in. Just one more minute. I don't even need you to do a day. Just do another second. Say, I'm still holding. I'm holding on for another second. Do it. Maybe you got to do it microsecond, right? A nanosecond, the little tiny second. But you got to just continue. One foot in front of the other and repeat. One foot in front of the other and repeat. Don't allow yourself to keep looking backwards, because what was yesterday, it was yesterday. Get up, move, and be determined. And I really do mean this. As my son, when he was learning to read in second grade, my oldest, he saw the word determined, and he said, determined. I'll never forget that. He says, Mom, what's this word? Is it determined? And I heard some from that they were like, determined. Be determined. Be determined. Be determined. And understand that you're going to have some things that are not going to work out. Right? Just not. But that don't means that you're out for the count, right? That don't mean, right, because you knocked out, that you can't get up. See, I love fight movies because fight movies are so good. I love anything athletic anyway. But boom, they done knocked the person down. The person laying on the on the canvas. And they one. And they counting two, and people like, oh, they not gonna get up. But inside that person like, and you see them pushing, and they pushing, and they 8, right? And they got up, they up, and by the time the person gets to 9, they standing up. They say, okay. And then the bell rings, so they get saved by the bell, and they over there in their little corner, and they giving them some water and washing off their face. And they say, okay, giving them a break. And then they come back and they win, right? They come back. I love those movies. They come back. I love those movies when you're just being counted out. Counted out. They just then counted you almost out, and you come back, and you are victorious. Because you got to believe that the promise of God is real, that he will never what? He will never leave or forsake you. See, I believe in those words. I believe that he is always by my side. I believe that there is nothing that is too hard for God. I believe that those who are with me are more powerful than those who are with my enemies. I just believe that. And although it may just look a little like I'm losing at this moment, I will win. Just like that day when I was 15 and they said that I couldn't, that I wouldn't, that I wasn't the right fit. And I was one of the only ones that came, besides one other boy, that came home with the big 3.5-foot trophy that day. Walked into my house and showed my mom and dad, and I remember having that trophy for really a long time. Big, tall, just such a big caramel classics, right? I don't know what you are facing. I don't know what darkness you may have to overcome, but what I want to say is that you can. Don't focus on what you have. Don't focus on what you lost. Focus on what you got right now. You may only have the breath in your body and a somewhat decent mind, right? I always tell people I'm a little bit smarter than the average bear. And I'm thankful to God for that, right? That I got just a little bit more sense. Got my share. I know my name. And I know a few other things besides that. But whatever it is I got, I'm going to use it to the utmost. We were talking the other day with one of my sons. He said he's going to ride it till the wheels fall off. I said, and then you're going to put them back on. See, I'm going to ride it till the wheels fall off, and then I got to maybe get out and put them back on and ride again. And every time they fall off, I'm going to ride them, and I'm going to put them back on. I'm not going to sit there in despair. I'm not going to sit there depressed. I'm not going to sit there downtrodden. So if you do see me, and you see me, I love Maya, and you do see me, you ought to make you proud, right? Because I'm going to walk like I got diamonds, there we go, between my thighs, because I know whose I am, and I know who I am. And when you know those things, what can you not achieve? I ask you. And so what I will say is maybe you're listening to this message and you say, I'm there. But you know what I want you to do for those of you who have that type of strength? Share it with someone else. Take the time when you hear someone else saying, you know what, I'm not sure. I'm not quite, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I want you to share your strength with them. I want you to tell them, you know what? It's maybe a little dark right now, but I need you to keep your eyes on the prize, right? I need you, I love that the scripture, the race is not given to the swift and to the strong, but the one who endureth to the end. And that's what I'm talking about today, is that we need to endure to the end, to not give up, to not give out, but to hang on in there. Hold on with everything. I don't care if you just all you got right now is the little tippy points of your fingers. Hold on. Because I can tell you, as I said, without any doubt in my mind, unequivocally, that your change is going to come. That the sun will shine again, that daybreak is on its way. But you just got to hold on. You got to believe, and you got to push through. And when you look up, right? When you look up, your children like mine are going to be older and accomplished and doing what they should do, even though the partner, the person that helped create them, didn't have any interest. It's up to you. And I'm not, and it's up to you because God created you with that ability. He created you with, what they say, we are created in the image. That's something to think about. You're created in the image of not mouses, not ants, not a tree, a rock, a dog, or a cat. No, you're created in the image of God, who is omnipresent and omniscient, who is everywhere at the same time and all-knowing. Think about that type of power that you have access to if you decide to use it. Because I was listening, and I used to always say, when you know better, you do better, right? We have a lot of idioms that we just repeat. You know better, you do better, And I have kind of believe a little differently in that. If you know better, you can choose to do better. Because it's a choice, as in life. God has even made it that it's a choice for us to choose to follow him or not. He doesn't create us to say, you better, you got to follow me. He says, okay, it's up to you. That's why choices are important. He says it's up to you. He does not say, you know what, you better follow me. No, he gives us all free will. And I want you to utilize your free will and your choice to make sure that the purpose, the reason why you were created, is actualized, is manifested. And it will happen when you continue to believe and expect, and as they say, act like it, right? Act like you somebody. Because see, if you're acting like you're not somebody, well, that's how people going to treat you. I was talking with my son the other day. We were just talking about how people, if depending on what you got on and stuff like that, they may, give you a little bit more play, right? You walk into a place and you got certain things on. People may give you, a little bit more play. And I said, well, you know what? Pretty much any place I walk in, I get play. Because I walk in with that expectation that whatever it is that I'm there to do will be done. And what needs to happen will happen. I remember one time when I was practicing as an attorney, I was in bankruptcy court, and the judge was Judge Brisman, and I had my clients there, and it was our turn to be up. And I know to this day, I said, "Good morning, Judge Brisman." That's all I said. I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. And Judge Brisman answered with, "Pipe down, young lady, pipe down." I was like, well, wait, I think I said good morning. Went ahead, did the business with my clients. Everything worked out. And so later on, I said to my clients, I said, did you see that? And they said, Attorney Dunlap, there's a lot of power in your good morning. I said, oh, okay. I said, oh, okay. They said, yeah, you did say good morning, but there was some extra stuff in your good morning. I said, oh, okay. Because that judge said, pipe down, young lady, pipe down immediately. I was like, okay, well, I think I said good morning. Because I expect. See, we got to stop walking around being pitiful and thinking somebody owes us something, right? Somebody, no, because nobody owes you anything. Everybody has the same thing. We all get here the same way. I don't care what scientists, boom, 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 happen. We all come the same way. And guess what else? We all gonna leave the same way too. Everybody that's born will die. What you do in between that, well, that's up to you. Like I said, I'm going to ride mine till the wheels fall off. And when the wheels fall off, if I am able, I'm going to get out and put my wheels back on. That's what I'm going to leave you with today, is be encouraged. Know that you can and that you will. And I do thank you for the privilege of being my guest today and listening in the audience. I thank you so much. Share what I said, if it's not for you, with someone else. Take care. Be encouraged.
I know it seems like midnight.
Well,
It's hard to see.
you got to.
But you gonna make it, you know?
He'll make it all right.
It's gonna work out. You know what I mean? I wanted to remix it. Just keep breathing.
No matter what's going on, he'll make it all
I know he will.
right.
Yeah.
But you gotta stay strong.
Still encouraged. I know right now it's impossible to see. Talking to the children of the day. God is gonna work it out.
Hey, thank you for listening to today's program. I hope that you found the information that was shared today helpful to you. If you are interested in sponsorship, or if you have comments, or if you just have a suggestion for future programming, please, you can call me at 407-451-4179 or email me at RosalindDunlap@Yahoo, or hit me up on my Facebook account at Rosalind Gentry. Hey, I look forward to hearing from you, and join me again next week for another segment of Believe to Achieve.